Well, hey there. What's going on? Welcome back to another Shop Talk Tuesday live. Hey, y'all. Got a few people already on. Got John Williams, Ferguson Woodworks, DK, Jeremy Peace. How you guys doing? What's going on? John Williams. Hey, sorry to hear about your epoxy. So John Williams says, I've got an absolute mess. The bottom quarter inch of my epoxy didn't cure. Two pours. First pour was rock hard and sanded prior to second pour per instructions mixed exactly as directed. Unmolding was a pain. So when you say the bottom quarter inch of epoxy didn't cure, it says the first pour is rock hard. Are you pouring it so like the top is the bottom and the bottom is the top? Pepper West says, "Good to see you. Good to see you back." Hey, I appreciate that. So, guys, I wanted to go over a few things. First of all, thank you guys for joining me this evening. It's always fun to have you all here. I did want to go over a few things, and I noticed that I get a lot of comments on a few of these issues, and I just wanted to answer a few that you guys have had. So, let me get to a couple of comments here first. You see, John Williams says yes. Okay, so I see. I understand exactly what you mean. First, Woodwork says, "What's up, all?" Bill S says, "Hey, hope all is well." John Williams says, "Soft and pliable." DK says, "Hi, all," and Crobbles says, "Greeting from Houston, Texas." Maloney says, "Hi from Oklahoma." So, guys, thanks for chiming in. I wanted to get to John Williams' thing. If you see, he posted some issues he was having, and John, I'm not sure exactly what happened. How long did you mix the epoxy for before you poured it? Also, what was the temperature like? Those two things are very important. Oh, Andre says hi from Quebec. Linda says, "New to your channel, enjoy your videos. Congrats on your adoption." Hey, Linda, I really appreciate that. Dave Scott says, "Baton Rouge." Jive Boys Food says, "Dude, I love the channel. Watch all your videos. Started my epoxy company 6 months ago. Going amazing. Called Epoxy Monkeys. Time to start making river tables. Thanks for the video. Thanks. Thanks for the video help. Thanks, Richie." Hey, no problem at all. Thanks for commenting. I'm glad we've been able to help you. John Williams says he mixed for 3 minutes and at 70 degrees and still messed up. I would say John Williams, he said he's having an issue with total boat. So I'm really sorry to hear that. Yeah, it seems like you mixed for 3 minutes. Are you mixing up with a paddle or are you mixing with a stir stick? So I'm sorry. Usually, even with 3 minutes with a stir stick, it should be good enough. And then he said he mixed another minute once he had the pigment in. So John Williams, are you using a dye pigment or are you mixing a powder pigment? And he says he's with a paddle. And so, yeah, maybe it could have been a bad batch. I don't know. That's hard to say. It looks like you've done everything correctly. So I'm not 100% sure. It could have been a bad batch. I have had something very similar happen. So Pepper West says, "I've had it happen before. Then realized I mixed part B twice with no part A." You do that one time only. So Joey Spink says, "What's your favorite epoxy?" As in casting epoxy. So if you guys watch my channel, I use Stone Coat Countertops Supercast a lot, and I really like that. But however, recently I have been able to try the Incredible Solutions liquid plastic. It's a deep pour up to 2-inch thick casting epoxy, but I am convinced you could pour way more than 2 inches thick, probably 3 inches thick without any issues. I've done a lot of tests with it here recently. I love it. It takes like 2.5 to 3 days to fully set up, but the good thing about that is that it allows the bubbles to rise and not get trapped in your epoxy. Um, and so if you guys go to the last video that I posted, I linked, I put the Incredible Solutions epoxy link in the description. It's a 3-gallon kit, and I also linked a promo code for 10% off, which is if you go any of their products on Amazon, so it could be their casting epoxy or their tabletop epoxy, whatever it is, you can go on there, Incredible Solutions, and the discount code is GoodView10WW, and you can get 10% off any of their products. Hey, John Williams, I'm real sorry. I know it is frustrating. It really is. I've had that happen before. So Joey says, trying for the first time. Soccer Dude 98 says, liquid plastic works wonders. And TNJ says, sorry, I'm late. Jive Boys Food says, I'm in the UK. Would it help if I share your videos on my Facebook? Oh, remember my comp. Remember my comp. Your name on YouTube channel coming soon. Floors and countertops. Okay. Yeah. Jive Boys, go ahead. Yeah, that would be great. It's always is. Anytime you guys can share, I would ask that you would share the videos. That way, the channel grows and that we can grow our community together too. And if you're not already if you don't already follow the private group, Good View Woodworks community, go on there. And this is a platform where you guys can post your own pictures of your projects and ask questions, and we can all work together to help each other. So Soccer Dude says, oh, excuse me. Joey Spink says, any heat required? So Joey, no. I did heat the bubbles on the last video, just the ones that were at the surface, one time per pour, and there were no bubbles left after that. So I would say you wouldn't have to. They might form at the very top, but most of the time you're sanding it down anyway, and that would get rid of them when you plane it down. Soccer Dude said, I used it on some tap handles and worked better than any other casting epoxy I've used. Yeah, it works great. I really like it. I actually have some really cool tests coming up to using it. So I don't know how to pronounce your name, but WH says, hi, do you remove bubbles with spray alcohol, for example, acetone? You can use isopropyl alcohol. I would not use acetone because acetone can sometimes leave a weird film and cause it not to adhere properly. So I would not use acetone, but isopropyl alcohol can definitely be used. And Renee Porter says, hi from Hawaii. Hey, Mom. So, yeah, she's in Hawaii, living the great life. TNJ Outdoors says, got some of the Incredible Solutions tabletop epoxy. I've only used epoxy. Any suggestions? The tabletop epoxy, it works well, like most epoxies, and actually cures rather quickly. I would say it cures overnight, so 12-hour range. But I would just use, when I pour it on, I use a 1/8 by 1/8 square notch trowel, a plastic one about this big, and I spread it on, and pretty much the same way you use any tabletop epoxy, but it works well. So DK says, is it possible to use the countertop epoxy to make a table maybe an inch to 2 inches thick? Yes, it is possible to use the countertop epoxy, but you can only pour it in as thick as a 1/4 inch maximum each layer. So it would take several layers. If you're doing 2 inches thick, obviously it would take 8 layers to fill it up. So I would recommend going with their liquid plastic, their casting epoxy. Andrew's Custom Build says, I'm going to be making my first epoxy river table in the next couple of weeks. Going to be awesome and an awesome video. So Andrew's Custom Builds are. Do you have a YouTube channel? Is this your YouTube channel? If so, I'd like to check it out. Joey Spinks gave me a thumbs up. Jennifer says, "Hi Nathan and good viewers. Happy Tuesday." Hey Jennifer, how's it going? How are you? I'm glad you showed up this evening. I think we've missed you on the last couple, I believe. Um, John Williams says, "Any issues with another pour with different brand?" Um, yes. So one time I had an issue with Stone Coat epoxy. However, I think it was my fault in the mix ratio and the temperature. I was a little low on temp, and I think I put just a little too much hardener in there. And if you do put too much hardener, it tends to not cure, which is weird. It's kind of backwards. But Corey Teller says, first time pouring epoxy, wondering if I have to pour in 2 layers or one. Making an epoxy lamp pour is going to be about 5 by 5 by 6 inches. Okay, Corey. So it all depends on what um, epoxy that you use. But if it's going to be 5 inches thick, I would recommend the Incredible Solutions casting epoxy and doing 2 pours. You could totally try pouring it that thick in a single pour, as I've poured. It was a water bottle about this thick, and I poured it about 6 inches tall, but it had some wood in there. So it wasn't, that's not a really good test, but you can bring the temperature down if you put a fan on it. Bring the temperature down. I think you might be able to pour it all in one pour. 2 would be safe and good, but if you put a fan on it, bring the temperature down, you can totally do it one pour, I think. Jive Boy says, dude, amazing last 2 videos helping your friend with Rivertail. Why don't you do training for people as a job? So that's a great question. I actually do, as not as a job yet, but I do get paid. And so Woodcraft of Richmond, I do classes there once every other month. And so we usually have between 4 and 6 students at a time, up to 10. And it's been really fun. We've done 2 classes already. We're getting ready to do a 3rd this month. Amanda Ray says, hello from Puerto Rico. How's it going, Amanda? Heath says, any idea if there is a going rate to get slabs kiln dried? Little leery making anything before I do that. So there is a place here near me where you can get, it's like an hour away from my house, but the guy only charged me like 50 or 60 bucks, excuse me, to dry the lumber. So it all depends on the person and how much they're willing to charge. Dave Scott says, I tried a river pour, got really hot. What did I do wrong? So if it gets really hot when you do a river, you're probably using the incorrect type of epoxy. You wanted a casting epoxy that cures very slowly. If you pour if you have like a tabletop that's only made to be poured like an 1/8 inch thick, when you pour a lot of it, the exothermic reaction happens and it creates a lot of heat. So it all depends on the style of epoxy you have, whether it's a coating epoxy or it's a casting epoxy. Charles Strong, what's going on? Ferguson Woodworks. So here's one. Some people prime their edges with brushing epoxy on, others don't. What do you prefer? Okay, Ferguson Woodworks, great question, and I'm glad you brought it up. So before my other videos, I would have recommended to coat the edges with epoxy and let it get tacky, almost like thick honey, and then make a pour. But I do not say that anymore. What you get, the best bond that can happen is when you allow the epoxy to sit for a long time and soak into the wood. The only way you're going to get that is from a deep pour with the correct type of epoxy. So what I recommend that is the best way is to not seal the edges, but make sure you're getting an epoxy that is meant to be poured really thick and that cures that takes a long time to cure. So it has time to soak in and get the best bond. Great question. Thanks. T&J Outdoors says, can you get the Incredible Solutions casting epoxy in large quantities, like 8 to 10 gallons? That is a great question. As a matter of fact, I am not sure. I'll have to get back to you on that one. So far right now, the biggest kit that they have is the 3-gallon kit. but you get 2 of those, and you're right there in between your 8 and 10 gallon mark. Then if you use my promo code, you could get like $50 off because I think it's about 225 for 3 gallons, and so you're getting almost like 47 bucks off. So you could do it that way as well. Um, John Boy says, "Dude, if you're ever in the UK, visit me. It'd be a great YouTube video." Heck yeah! If I ever in the UK, I definitely will. That would be sweet. John Williams says, "Using a heat gun and scraper to remove uncured epoxy, and will retry. I've contacted Total Boat, but no response." Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, the best way to do it, you don't have to get once you get all you can off of there, you can actually pour directly on top of that, and some of the unmixed or the uncured epoxy will just be inside. I've had that happen where it was soft and it wouldn't fully get hard. I coated it again with another coat. It got hard. I had no issues. Um, so James Taylor says, "What site could I find the troll that you were talking about?" Um, hey James Taylor, I'm not sure what troll you're talking about. Um, Amando says, "I've learned a lot from your videos. Keep up the good work. God bless you." Hey, Amando, appreciate that. Nick Shaw says, "I'm here. Had to vote." Hey, Nick, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, make sure you get your votes going. Um, so Ferguson Woodward says, "So with flow cask that can be poured 1.5 inch thick, you wouldn't prime your edges?" I would not. I've never used flow cast. I'm not sure how long it takes to set up, but um, yes, I would not recommend sealing the edges. So I did a test with this Incredible Solutions, and I've also done a test with a few other brands. I've also talked to Black Forest Wood Company, which they're like the pioneers to the epoxy game, the river table game, and they also say the same thing. They do not recommend sealing the edges. You want a good epoxy that takes a while to set up so it can soak and get the best bond. Um, Joey Spink says, "Please post your promo code." Hey, Joey, if you go back to my last video, part 2 of the river build, the promo code's in the description, but I'll put it up here. I'll put it in the comments. So it would be Good View 10 WW, and that promo code is good on Amazon for the Incredible Solutions epoxy. So yeah, hey T and J Outdoors, I just posted it again. If you look in the comments, it says, "Can you give the code again?" Do we just go to their website? Yeah, you just go on Amazon and search Incredible Solutions, and anything on their Amazon page, you can get 10% off. Um, Nick Shell says, "That's a no on the mass quantities for Incredible Solutions. As far as ordering through Amazon, I need 25 gallons at the moment, but it's not available." 25 gallons? Is that for that for that bar top? Jay Thomas has any idea how well the epoxy coats hold up on outdoor furniture? Yeah, the epoxy holds up well in outdoor furniture. The problem with outdoor stuff is that epoxy will yellow in direct sunlight. Now, there are UV inhibitors in the countertop stuff or the tabletop stuff, and there's not in the casting epoxy, at least not as many. And so it will yellow. Um, so yeah, so that's the only issue. It'll amber over time, and in direct sunlight, it happens faster in sunlight. First of Woodward says 72 hours is the hardening time. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I would not recommend a seal coat. Just make sure you just watch it as best you can, and just make sure that the bubbles are moving all the way to the top. But you should be okay with that. Job Boys says, "I can only find caulk for painting in the UK world. Would that work? You have so you have so many more products in the US." Yeah, yeah, of course. If you just get the paintable caulk, it'll work. I usually use the stuff that sets up in 20 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever it is. Um, Nick Shelton says, "I'm listening while planing boards." Wow, is it hard to hear? I know my planer is loud. John Williams says, would that incredible solutions work on top of the total boat? Yeah. Yeah. Just make sure that the total boat is sanded. It has some like sanded like 120 or 220. And so you have like a good mechanical adhesion, and yeah, it'll work on top. Amanda says, where online can I buy the products you use, and if they ship to Puerto Rico? It's a great question. So I get the Incredible Solutions epoxies on Amazon, and you'll have to see. I'm not 100% sure if they ship to Puerto Rico, but you can go on Amazon and check. Pepper West says, do you know if the white dye also yellows? So I'm not sure exactly about the dye itself, but if you use white dye in the epoxy, it will look amber over time. So what you have to do is use some sort of clear coat finish that resists yellowing. So like an automotive um, grade clear coat works really well. Um, Melanie says, what's a good way to build a mold and seal it off so I don't have to make an 8-foot mold to surround the entire piece of wood? Um, so I'm not a, so can you describe your project a little bit? So you have an 8-foot table, I'm guessing, that you're wanting to make. Um, Most of the time, that's how you're going to have to do it, is build something that goes all the way around. I mean, essentially, that's what you're doing, is filling up a void. So, um, really, I don't know of any other way, because this is what works really well, is by building sides and things. And so I'm not really sure. If anybody else has any other tips, they can feel free to add them in. John Williams says, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing your knowledge input. No problem, John. That's what this channel is all about, is just sharing what I know, what I've experienced, and trying to help you guys out, and trying to create a community where we can all add our own tips and information. So if you guys go over to Facebook and search the Goodview Woodworks community group, uh, go on there and answer the questions and join. It's a really cool group.